Sean McManus. He, of course, runs CBS Sports, and he came on and did a great job on Enberg with Dick's passing a couple of months ago. Sean, nice to talk again. How are you today? Okay, pal?
Yeah, I'm a little tired, Christopher. This March Madness has a lot of late nights, but I'm looking forward to the Final Four, and I'm doing fine. It's been an interesting tournament. We've lost a couple of teams we wish we hadn't lost, like UNC and Kentucky and Arizona and Virginia, but we're hanging in there, and the rank's in okay, and we're still in line for a really good Final Four. If we get Villanova through, and if we get Duke or Kansas through and Michigan through, we still should be okay. And I think that Loyola Chicago is a pretty good one. Everybody is waiting to see Sister Jean, how far she's going to go with her team.
Yeah, 100%, Sean. I think the Duke-Villanova game will be a huge game. Are you as wrapped up in... Now, you don't have the Final Four. That's a TBS deal. So do you care as much who gets to the Final Four, the fact that CBS doesn't have the games?
We do because we're 50-50 partners with Turner on this. So, we share in the upside and we suffer from the downside. So, yeah. I mean, it's probably not as important to us as an actual company from a programming standpoint, but from a partnership standpoint, we're rooting for the best Final Four. Absolutely.
All right. Do you sell the numbers for next year off this year's Final Four? Do you do that still?
No, we'll sell it off of the last time we had it. We did, as you remember, a terrific rating with that North Carolina game last year. We'll sell off the CBS rating from last year and not the TBS rating because, unless something really unforeseen happens, the CBS rating is always going to be better than the TBS rating.
Oh, absolutely. We know that because cable and everything else. How much better, Sean? 25%? How much does the Final Four get hurt rating-wise that it's all on cable?
Could be as much as 25 to 30%, Chris. And again, a lot of it's going to depend on who's in it and how good the games are. But 2 years ago with that incredible North Carolina game with the buzzer beater with Chris Jenkins. It was maybe the best Final Four game ever, and unfortunately it turned out to be the lowest rated ever. So there's definitely an impact when it's on Turner.
Wow.
But,
wow.
That's the deal that we made. And that's the deal that we're going to live with.
Well, I didn't realize that. So the Carolina-Villanova game on TBS, I had forgotten. That was the lowest rated championship game you guys have ever had?
Yeah, it was, unfortunately. If you remember, it was an unbelievably good game with one of the most incredible, actually two buzzer beaters. The North Carolina kid who made his shot, and then when Jenkins came up and made his shot. But yeah, it was definitely low rated. And it's funny too, Sean. It's sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. You love the upset, you love the UMBC story, but I'm not stupid. UMBC was a great day on a Friday, but on Sunday they were on True TV. So I mean, when it comes right down to it, you almost want a near upset to have the Blue Bloods advance. Isn't that the best way to go as far as the tournament is concerned? Yeah, it really is, Christopher. And we're at the point now where, from a television standpoint, you really root for the big teams. I mean, last night's Kentucky outcome was not good for us and not good for TBS at all. I mean, Kentucky being the Blue Bloods that they are and having the television draw that they have, that really hurt us. Kansas State winning, I have nothing against Kansas State as a school or a team, but that really hurt us. And that was the game Kentucky should have won. All they got to do is hit a few free throws in the end of the game, and they win that game. That really hurt us. We're pretty protected in the Midwest with both Duke and Kansas. Duke probably the best television draw in the tournament. Kansas certainly up there, and Villanova gets through, we'll be okay on that side. But losing Kentucky last night was not a good night in our control room.
Sean, is Loyola a good enough story that it can overcome the quietness of the program? I mean, nobody knows where Loyola is for crying. I mean, but it's such a fun story. They won a lot of close games. The 98-year-old nun, is it enough to carry them TV-wise? Or even though they are a unique and a fun story, the size of the school and conference is too tough to overcome? How's that work?
It's the whole Sister Jean story, I think, has resonated with people watching it. The problem is it probably won't bring a lot of new people to the sets who haven't been following the tournament all along. You know, it's a good story. They won, 3 games by 4 points. So they've been a really exciting team to watch. You do get the Chicago market, which helps a little bit, but I'd be lying if I said that they're going to be as big a draw as a Kansas or a Kentucky or Virginia would have been.
Yeah.
But it's a great story. I think Sister Jean is terrific, but it's to have an upstart like that go this far. Not a disaster, obviously, but not the best of all scenarios for us.
Now, listen, this is an East Coast bias thing. How about starting these Sweet 16 games after 10 o'clock? Sure, that's tricky. Last night, even I'm falling asleep on the Gonzaga-Florida State game. As soon as that Kentucky game is over, I check a score. It's after midnight. I got a 50-mile drive the next day and a long commute and a long day. How much do you get hurt? Or is the East Coast thing think it's a bigger deal than it really is? How much do you get hurt with the late games in the Sweet 16 after midnight? How's that work?
I think we get hurt if the game is a blowout. If it's a close game, the rating doesn't go down at all. It actually builds the later you get. And listen, we're trying to squeeze in 4 games and trying to leave enough space in between each game so that they don't run into each other. But it's listen, if we could figure out a way to end a little bit earlier, I would like that. But from a financial and a programming standpoint, the schedule we have is about the best one for us.
It is. All right. As far as the Tiger Woods phenomenon is concerned, Sean, you're on the end of that as well. You will have an absolutely humongous Masters. I know you go to that as well. That's the CBS deal right after the tournament. Give me a rundown on the Tiger impact in Augusta in a couple of weeks.
It's almost immeasurable, to be honest with you. If you remember, back in 1997 when Tiger won his first Masters by 12 strokes, that was the highest rated and most watched Masters of all time. I think if Tiger is in contention coming down the stretch on Sunday early evening, we could rival that 14 rating, Chris. I think it's such an amazing story. And listen, the ratings last week on Sunday were up 175% at Bay Hill, and Tiger didn't even win. He was just in contention.
Wow.
The ratings the weekend before were up about 150% on Sunday because of Tiger at the Valspar Open. So, I mean, it's almost impossible to exaggerate the effect he would have. And if we get him in on Sunday on the leaderboard, Katie barred the door. It's going to be an amazing athletic event. And I think, the fact that he is doing this, having had the 3 back surgeries, having had the knee surgeries, having had the broken tibia, having had the ACLs, the fact that he's coming back at his age when 6 or 8 months ago he couldn't even get out of bed is just one of the most phenomenal stories in the history of sports. And if he were ever to pull it off, it's going to rank up there with the greatest accomplishments and the greatest comebacks in history. Because remember, he's putting an awful lot of stress and strain on his body. He's got which I think is also remarkable, he's got the highest club head speed on tour, which when you think about these young guys like Ricky Fowler and Spieth and Dustin Johnson, at 42 years old, I mean, it's almost indescribable. So I think, Chris, we are set up for a historic Masters if he plays next week as he did, or the week after, I should say, as he did the previous 2 weeks at Bay Hill and at Valspar.
Does Mickelson move the needle, or only for the golf fans, Sean? How does Mickelson work here?
Mickelson moves the needle, absolutely. He would, if he was up there in contention, it definitely helps in the ratings. I would put him a tick above the Jordan Spieths, Ricky Fowlers, Dustin Johnson, Justin Roses. I would put him, above them, right underneath Tiger, but nobody moves it like Tiger does. It's just a phenomenon. A little bit like when Jordan was, still playing in the NBA. He could move the needle, but nobody's moved the needle in sports television the way Tiger has.
He moves it a lot more than LeBron does, Sean?
I think he does, Christopher, just in terms of the disparity between an event that has Tiger in it and an event that doesn't have it. And again, I'm not exaggerating when I say last week the Sunday ratings were up 175%. So listen, LeBron is great, and if you get a rematch with Steph Curry, that's great. But you're not going to see a doubling of a rating if LeBron is in a game as opposed to when he's not in a game, you can literally see more than a doubling of the rating if Tiger's in contention.
Wow, Sean McManus, we'll let him go here in a minute. Sean, I know I have him in studio that week, so I know. And, he's a friend of mine and he's an employee of yours. Armin Katayan wrote a book about Tiger. Now, I don't know if the book has got a negative sense to it. I'm sure there is some negativity to it. He's a big-time reporter. He's on CBS, I believe, your morning show on Monday. Does that affect any scenario from a sports division department? If that book gets, if he rips Tiger a lot, does that affect your coverage of Tiger? Does that affect your accessibility to Tiger? How does that work as far as the scenario is concerned with an author's book on a big participant right when it comes out at the Masters? Is there any correlation whatsoever?
Not really. Listen, I can't speak for how Tiger will react, and I just literally got the book placed on my desk this afternoon, so I haven't even looked at it. But there's a Chinese wall between CBS News, for which Armin works, and CBS Sports. We weren't involved in the book. I knew Armin was writing it. I think it is a no warts book. I think it does have some negativity in it about Tiger. But listen, I can't help, and I can't tell Armin Katayan not to write a book. He's done so. And if Tiger reacts badly to it, and if he decides to react badly towards CBS, so be it. Tiger's a professional. He's always treated us with respect. I think he respects the work that we do. And, I would think he would see the difference between a CBS sports division and a writer who happens also to work for CBS. But I can't speak for Tiger.
Interesting.
By the way, you mentioned Enberg. I went to the Enberg Memorial a couple of weeks ago, and it was really amazing. They had Billy Packer speaking about all of his days with him and Al McGuire, and Dan Fouts was there speaking. It was a real good tribute to an amazing man.
Yeah, I heard somebody told me that it hit the perfect note. That's the best way to explain it, right? You'd agree with that? It hit the perfect note out of Petco Park that day?
I thought it was terrific. Yeah, it was warm, and his family members were there, and a lot of his old buddies. Mike Weissman was there, Bob Costas was there. It was an appropriate send-off for a terrific guy.
Yeah, it was. All right. How about the football? I mean, boy, Fox spent a lot of money on that Thursday night package, Sean. That is a fortune for 11 games. Was it $55 million a game if you add it all up? I know Fox does not have the primetime stuff that you guys do. What was your take on the Fox cost for the Thursday night NFL package? What can you tell me about that?
We made a pretty responsible bid, as did NBC. We were willing to lose a lot of money on Thursday Night Football. We just weren't willing to lose the kind of money that Fox has signed up for. But listen, Chris, they're in a very different game right now. They're selling a lot of their company to Disney. They're not really in the scripted series business with scripted shows in prime time. I think Rupert is going towards live events, both news and sports, and I think this is a way for him to send a message to the community that he's serious about his Fox Broadcasting Network. And this is 11 games that will do good ratings. And I think for him, it made more sense to lose the kind of money that we weren't willing to lose. And I don't second guess anybody. If I were in his position and I were trying to make sure that my network stayed viable, I would take a real hard look at Thursday Night Football. There's no other way right now that I know of that you can actually purchase good ratings. And Rupert's going to have a tough time generating ratings for his network. And the fact that he could buy 11 nights, I think was a pretty smart move on his part. We're very successful in prime time, as you said. We just couldn't stomach the kind of losses that Rupert was willing to lose, and neither could NBC. So, listen, I love doing it for 4 years. The first couple of years we did the whole schedule in prime time. It was good for our division. I wish we were doing it again. But I work for a corporation, and my boss, Leslie Moonves, had the shareholders and the investors in mind when he said, listen, here's what we can lose and no more, and it just wasn't enough. But listen, we still have Sunday afternoon football, the 4:25 window, still the highest rated window of the weekend, and we've got that 9 weeks a year. So I'm pumped up. I'm pumped up for Tony Romo to come back, and I'm pumped up for the fact that we got Super Bowl 53 coming up.
You know what? I got that wrong, so I owe you an apology. Romo's done a hell of a job. Now, I will tell you this, too. A little birdie told me, and I want you to help me out. A little birdie told me that the issue that the NFL is going to have a little bit is finding a lot of great 425 games for CBS in the fall, because Green Bay is at New England. Minnesota is at New England. A lot of the big games that the Patriots play and the Steelers are at home, so you don't have as many great matchups for the CBS window at 425. Is that true? Are you concerned when that schedule comes out in a few weeks? What's your take on that for a sec? What can you tell me?
The schedule, Christopher, doesn't break out great for us this year. Our two Dallas games actually are Jacksonville, and which actually is a good game, but our other game is Tennessee, which isn't great. And listen, the crossover games aren't wonderful for us this year. I think the NFL will still come up with 8 really good doubleheader games for us. We've given them a list of games, and there are enough good games on there. If I could pull it out of my file, I could actually read them to you. But there's some games. The other thing, Christopher, that we get that we haven't gotten up until 2 years ago is a cross-flex, where the NFL can take a Fox game and put it on CBS. So I think we will get a number of good cross-flex games in the 425 window to make up for the games that we're lacking this year. But I think, listen, there's still some really good Patriots games. There's a Patriots-Steelers game. There's a Patriots-Jacksonville game. There's enough good games out there. It's always the challenge with the AFC. We don't have as many big markets as Fox does, but I think the schedule will be fine this year. I'm not really concerned about it.
The NFL, the media likes to make a big deal about the NFL ratings the last 2 years. To me, it's ridiculous. I mean, they still get 100 million people watching the Super Bowl. They can't be that bad. But if you were Goodell, Sean, would you be concerned a little bit about the NFL ratings, the downward trend in the last couple seasons? Would that bother you? Is it going to have a market correction and bounce back? The kneel down? What's your take on the ratings overall for the National Football League?
Christopher, nobody likes ratings to go down. I'm concerned about it. I was concerned about it the first year, 2 years ago, when they were down for the first time in a long time, and that we blamed on the election and all the cable news coverage, et cetera. This year I was surprised that they were down. They were down marginally, but as you say, the NFL still blows away anything else on television. And I think, Christopher, as many people are consuming the NFL as ever, they're just doing it in different ways, and they're doing it on their phones, they're doing it on their tablets, they're doing it, on their desktops. So I think what we've got to do is figure out how to continue to have as many people watching the NFL and figure out a way to monetize those viewers who are watching on their phones or watching the Red Zone, which is obviously a competitive product. So, if you look at the way people are watching media across all day parts, whether it's primetime or daytime or early morning, more people are consuming in different ways. I think that's the primary reason why the NFL ratings were down. I think the national anthem protest had some effect. I think Red Zone has some effect. I think the mobile rights have some effect. I think the fact that people are binge viewing more often on Sunday afternoons than they were has an effect. So it's a lot of different reasons. But I am optimistic that we've reached the point where we're not going to go down anymore. We've reached a kind of a critical mass in terms of the viewership lessening. And, I still think we're going to get good ratings. And as you said, the Super Bowl is going to get over 100 million viewers next year, and it did last year, and we're going to be pleased to carry it on CBS.
Right.
So, listen, nobody likes it when ratings go down, and we've spent an awful lot of time talking to the league about ways to get ratings up there. And, I think, listen, it's still the number one game in town. You still can't have a viable network without it, and it's still the driving force of the CBS television network. Hoping they rebound next year, but we'll be keeping a very close eye on it.
Is NBC, and be honest here, I looked at the ratings every night. They didn't look to be that good. Is NBC happy with their Winter Olympic ratings for 2.5 weeks in South Korea?
I think they were fine. I think the industry now is looking more at what we call total audience delivery as opposed to just the primetime ratings. And I think if you look at all the people who consumed the Olympics, whether it was on NBC, whether it was on USA Network, or whether it was on CNBC or MSNBC, or in their very, very vibrant digital, thousands of hours on the digital platforms. I think they came out fine. I think the primetime ratings are what everybody looks at. They're less important these days, and what people are really looking for is how many people are watching your programming and how many people are watching the commercials that air. And listen, when you're in South Korea, the time zone difference is not awful, but it's not ideal either. And, they were lucky that they had a fair amount of good events in live in prime time. They had some bad weather with the downhill events that hurt them. But I think that if you were to say to them, what did you project coming out of the Olympics, the ratings would be, I think they pretty much hit their target. So I don't think there's any alarm bells going off in Mark Lazarus's office.
All right, last thing, Sean, and I appreciate so much time. Let's put Tiger aside. Give me the top 5 athletes, whether it's Serena, Federer, Brady. Give me the top 5 to 6 athletes who move the needle in sports television more than anybody else. Do you have a few?
Got a few. I would put LeBron in there. I would put Federer and
Nadal
Rafa in there. I would put Serena in there. If you look at a women's final at the U.S. Open with Serena and without Serena, it's a very, very big difference. I would put the Yankees as a team in there, and I think Aaron Judge. A little more difficult in basketball than in basketball or the individual sports, but I think Aaron Judge has the ability to move the needle. In hockey, I don't think there's really anybody. I'm trying to think of other sports, but I think Federer, Rafa, Serena, Tiger, LeBron. I think Steph Curry has it in him. I think the Patriots right now, and I'll put Tom Brady as the leader of the Patriots on that list. The Patriots are becoming a little bit like the Yankees in that an awful lot of people love them, an awful lot of people don't like them, and I think they're tired of the success that they get. They're tired of the attention that Brady gets. Listen, Robert Kraft has done an amazing job with that team, and whenever you have a team that is that dominant year after year, you're going to get people that are going to be sick of them and tired of them. So I think right now the biggest draw probably is still... Probably Dallas Cowboys still number 1, but I would put Brady and the Patriots as a very, very close number 2.
You would?
I'd put Dallas in that category just because they're the Cowboys. But the Patriots, because of what they've done, and quite frankly, because of some of the controversy that has followed them, I think Dallas is 1, and I think the Patriots are 1A. And I would put the Steelers and probably Green Bay as 1B.
All right, the Yankees, do the Cubs compare with the Yankees, or did that championship take away all the Cub novelty? How about that? How about the Cubbies?
Cubs are still really good. Obviously, having won the World Series a couple years ago, lessens that story a little bit. If I could have a team in the World Series, though, I'd put the New York Yankees by far number 1.
Oh, you would? Wow.
Yep.
Wow. How about does college football have a team?
Yeah, I still got to say Alabama. I think if they are really playing well, and they've had some off years recently, I think you could put Notre Dame in that category just because of the tradition and the alumni base that they have. But Alabama is still, again, because of what Saban has done, and a lot of people like him and a lot of people don't like him. I would say Saban and Alabama would be number 1. But a lot of college football also, Christopher, is driven by who they're playing. You had the rematch this year, so that got a lot of special attention. USC, Notre Dame. If those programs were really firing in all cylinders and were in the top 5 together, that's a big time rivalry. College football, I think, more so than even the NBA or more so than the other professional sports, the NFL and Major League Baseball. College football is more about the rivalries. Alabama, Auburn is a huge draw if both those teams are in the top 10. So it's kind of more rivalry-driven in college football, I would say, than it is individual teams.
All right, are we going to have 18 holes of coverage on Sunday? How many holes do you give me on Saturday at the Masters in 2 weeks? How many do I get on CBS, Sean?
You get 18 on Saturday, and you get 18 on Sunday, and you'll see the leaders tee off on Sunday. You'll see every stroke of the leaders on Sunday.
Now, if Tiger is not in it, but he made the cut. That's always a very tricky call for you of what to do. Leaders or show Tiger? How do you handle that?
You got to find a balance, and you got to realize that it's a little bit different if Tiger is in contention as opposed to not being in contention at all. If he makes the cut and he's 10 strokes behind and he tees off, fairly early, we're going to show a lot of Tiger, but we're not going to show enough Tiger that we don't document what else is happening in the tournament. So it's a tricky formula and a tricky happy medium to find. It's a little bit, Christopher, I'll tell you what it's a little bit like. It's a little bit like when we used to carry all the NCAA games on CBS and we needed to switch out of a blowout. No matter what you did, no matter when you switched out of that blowout, no matter what game you switched to, you're always going to have some people, and usually about half the people, really, really mad at us. You and Mike used to kill us every time I would take somebody away from a Duke game. What are these guys thinking about? Well, how could they be doing this? But just as many people thought, that's great, I want to see him. Same thing with Tiger. There are going to be people out there who are going to say that we are showing too much Tiger, and there are going to be people out there saying, oh, my gosh, I want to see every single shot Tiger Woods hits, whether he's in contention or not. And that's the balance that we and, my producer, Lance Barrow, I think is the best golf producer in the business, that's a call you make on the fly. And that's the thing about golf. It's not like a football field or a baseball diamond where you have one field of play. You've got 18 fields of play, and you've got maybe up to a dozen guys hitting shots literally simultaneously. So to try to balance that all out and put on top of that the Tiger factor, there's nothing more complicated than producing a big-time major championship for golf. But I think our guys are up to it, and I think we'll find a happy medium. Having said that, there will be writers out there, there'll be bloggers out there who will say, hey, they showed way too much Tiger, or B, they didn't show enough Tiger.
Yeah, you can't win. And I know, great job on you, too, with Raftery. I don't know too many guys who have had a rebirth at 70 years of age, but he's got a lot of juice. He's fun. That was an ingenious move. I hope it lasts forever. How about Raf in the booth with Nance and Grant Hill, Sean? How about that for a sec?
I love it. It came out of a very unfortunate situation with Greg Anthony and the issues that he had. That decision, it's funny, I found out about the Greg Anthony situation about 9 o'clock on Friday night, and Dave Burson and I were scheduled to travel up to Foxborough for a playoff game the following morning. We spent 3.5 hours in the car talking to the NCAA, talking to Greg Anthony's people, talking to Jim Nance's people, talking to Bill Raftery's people, talking to Grant Hill's people, talking to the Turner folks who are our co-producers. And in that 2.5-hour ride, we made the decision not to bring back Greg Anthony, and we made the decision to pair Jim Nance with Raf and with Grant Hill, just really on instinct. The same way that we picked Tony Romo, we thought that the combination of a recently retired African-American basketball player, Grant Hill, very articulate, very opinionated, together with an older gentleman who's got a great following, together with Jim Nance in the middle, was a great combination. And I was very sorry to see what happened to Greg Anthony. He was a friend, and he was a really good broadcaster. But in a strange kind of way, this enabled us to put together a booth that I think is just remarkable. And Raf has the enthusiasm of a 21-year-old college senior when he goes to a basketball game. And he's beloved. And I've never seen anybody in any sport who is beloved as much as he is. I mean, people, whether they're old, they're young, the young high school kids find him funny, and the 70-year-olds find him funny. And the combination of him and Nance, listen, I'm not going to compare it to Dick Enberg and Billy Packer and McGuire. That is something that will never, ever be duplicated again. And it was at a time when there wasn't cable. There was only one broadcaster of college basketball, basically, except the syndicated packages, and they had a way of dominating everything they did. So I'm not going to compare it to that group, but I'll tell you, it's pretty darn close to being one of the best three-man booths that I've ever seen, and they get better all the time, and they're just a fun listen. I mean, that's the best thing. It's a lot of fun to listen to the three of them. So I'm glad we made that move. That was I'm never going to write a book, Christopher, but if I do, that ride up to Foxborough is in there, because we were literally hanging up with Sandy Montag, who represented Greg Anthony, and calling, the agent for Grant Hill, hanging up with, Jim Nance, getting his thoughts, and then picking up with Bill Raftery. So it it was an incredible car ride, and one that I think really turned out well for the fans.
Great to talk to you, Sean. You do a wonderful job. I know you only want to give me 10, 12 minutes. Hey, here it is. I kept you for 25, so I owe you one. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Always happy. I'll see you around the Canaan.
Yes, indeed. Sean McManus. Good thoughts there. How about Tiger? 175% ratings on Sunday at Bay Hill. How about that? Yeah. Holy crap. 170. Can you imagine?
It's set up for the Masters.
He must have destroyed the college basketball last Sunday.
I think he would destroy anything, don't you?
Well, I don't know, but he must. What was the Sunday late game on CBS?
What? I don't understand what you're like. What do you really think that I care? Like, you're acting as if, like, I'm an ambassador for college basketball. I don't give a crap. Well, who cares if they... I don't care if, like, 7 people watch it. I'm still going to watch it. I don't care. You could say anything you want. You could tell me that Poole beat it. I don't care.
How about that? The fact that the Carolina Villanova game is the lowest rated.
Because it was on TBS. Danny and I were talking about that today because he was going over the ratings in recent years, and I said, wow, why is that significantly lower? And then Bill was like, oh, that was a TBS one.
Right. And how about they're very, very concerned about this weekend with the ratings?
Well, they should be.
They're going to get a couple people maybe, but
3 or 4. So lucky.
I love you, Steve. I love the tweaking folks because
You're not even tweaking me though. That's like you're sitting there with the scooper. Like, who cares?
Oh, you care, Steve.
No, I don't.
Listen to your reaction, though, Steve.
But I'm reacting that way because it's so ridiculous. I honestly don't care. I don't.
All right. You okay?
I'm terrific. You going to watch the games tonight?
Yeah, of course I am. I don't get home at 8 o'clock. The question is, what's the late game? Duke. If Duke's up double digits at the half, Steve, I'm going to bed.
You're going bye-bye?
Double digits. Now, if it's 40-30 and it's a good half, I'll stick with it. But if that game is 33-22 at the half,
which it could be, the other late game would be Texas Tech and Purdue. That doesn't interest you?
Well, that's a tricky game. You know why? You're going to watch Duke. That game is going to be over 10 after 12, and the Texas Tech game will have about 14 minutes to go, it's going to be 51-48. Boy, what do you do?
I don't know. I think it's going to be a decent game. I do.
Well, I gave you 51-48. You think the Duke game's going to be a decent game?
No, my doubts about that.
No, you say the Texas Tech game.
Yeah,
I gave you 51-48. That's a decent game, but it's a 12-20 a night, 11 minutes to go. What do you do? Anything else going on in sports today?
Well, you know about most of the headlines, although Major League Baseball, so Miguel Sano not suspended following the investigation for assault allegations. However, Red Sox right-hander Stephen Wright was suspended 15 games for violating the league's domestic violence policy.
Oh, really? So Sano got away, huh?
Yeah, there was not enough evidence, apparently, and that's that.
Anything else?
There you go. Well, let's see. If anyone doesn't recall, the Dolphins agreed to a deal with Brock Osweiler.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Cowboys signed to Alan Hearns.
I did hear you say that.
Apparently the Jets
like Sue?
Yeah, like Sue a lot. Michael Bennett, did you hear about this?
Nah, I did. Bennett's
indicted on a felony charge injuring a 66-year-old paraplegic woman who was working as part of a security team at the Super Bowl a couple years ago in Houston.
What a clown he is. Go ahead, next.
Wayne Huizenga passed away.
80 years old.
Kyrie Irving's having what the Celtics are describing as a minimally invasive procedure to relieve some soreness in his left knee.
I tell you, the Celtics are not going to the final. They got too many injuries. They got too much of a mess. They just seem to, Marcus Smart's out. I mean, they just got a major
they're banged
issue.
up. I don't know. This doesn't appear to be serious, but who knows? I mean,
but still, he may not be 100%.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right, Steve, good job.
Enjoy your weekend, Chris.
You too as well. We take a time out here on Mad Dog Unleashed.